A date with the Grizzlies for the 8th seed in the West on Friday. Anthony Davis knocks down a three. Had a big second quarter, 16 of his 27 coming in the second frame. 3 threes, 9 rebounds. Also distributing. Derek Lively throwing that down. Klay Thompson adds 23 as Dallas wins going away with it. 120-106. This game was over at halftime. Mavs shoot 50% from the floor. Knock down 14 three-pointers. Kings tried to stay in it. DeMar DeRozan goes for 33. Zach LaVine with 20. Another double-double for Domantas Sabonis, but a season that comes to an end for Sacramento. And for more, welcome in the co-hosts of Beyond the Arc, CBS Sports NBA insider Bill Ryder and CBS Sports HQ NBA analyst John Gonzalez. Game was over at halftime, men. The Mavs dominate the Kings, thanks in part to Anthony Davis and Klay Thompson. Bill, what's your biggest takeaway from this play-in game?
It helps to play a bad basketball team. Is that allowed to be my analysis? Look, that is a poor Kings team, and we know the drama of the Mavs and everything they've been through, and the fact they traded away Luka Doncic, and this game probably adds up to very little, come what may, on Friday against the Grizzlies, because it's a poison chalice. Even if you win that game, you're playing the Oklahoma City Thunder. But at least for a night, I guess the takeaway is the Dallas Mavericks play with some energy. They play with some effort. They were excellent. And you said it, Akeem, they won that game in the first half. It felt like I watched the Chicago Bulls lose 2 playing games tonight. John and I talked about the actual Bulls losing a playing game earlier, and then you had the DeRozan-LaVine duo, sort of deja vu all over again on the West Coast. And it just, you know, for Sacramento, I know it feels like a million years ago. A couple years ago, they really pushed a Warriors team. It felt like they were built to be something. And as much as we focus on the Mavericks undoing their future, it's hard to feel good about where the Kings are at either.
Yeah, these are bad basketball teams. I mean, it was such a curious lineup that the Mavs went with, right? I mean, they went with 4 front court players, and Anthony Davis and P.J. Washington and Derek Lively and Najee Marshall, and then they just like threw Klay out there, and they're like, I guess you're our shot creator and our playmaker. You're our lone guard. Very curious. Against any other team that actually plays defense, I don't think that the Mavs would have probably performed as well as they did tonight. Nobody on that Sacramento Kings team plays defense outside of Keon Ellis. It was actually, I mean, when they have DeRozan out there and Zach LaVine and Domantas Sabonis, they're just porous defensively. And it's really, sometimes I think we forget that with all the things that happen in the NBA this season, with the drama surrounding the Mavericks and Nico Harrison and the Denver Nuggets firing their front office and also their head coach and also Taylor Jenkins getting fired, that it's been a really bad season in Sacramento. Don't forget that they fired Mike Brown and replaced him with Doug Christie. And oh yeah, De'Aaron Fox, the face of the franchise, went, no thank you, I'd rather play in San Antonio. I think tonight is a good example of why those things happened.
So the Mavs will play the Grizzlies on Friday for the 8th seed in the West. Luka played in the only game that Dallas won against Memphis in the regular season. He no longer plays for Dallas. Bill, how do the Mavs match up with the Grizzlies with Ja Morant expected to play despite injuring his ankle on Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, look, I know Memphis is in the play-in. I know that they're in the game, the 8th seed game. They are a markedly better basketball team than the Dallas Mavericks. I mean, it was by the smallest of margins that it was Memphis and the Warriors who ended up in this play-in situation in the first place. So at least on paper, the reality is, especially if Ja Morant is playing, Akeem, they're a much better basketball team. And John just said it. The Mavs aren't very good, even though they won this game tonight. The problem becomes, or the reality is, that this is this weird sort of concoction that Adam Silver and the NBA has cooked up, and I like it, but it's an automatic Game 7. It's a one-off, and anything can happen in these games. If Klay Thompson has another spectacular quarter, he had the second highest scoring quarter of the season for the Mavs. If, conversely, Ja Morant isn't able to go and Desmond Bane can't play superhero, if just the Grizzlies have an off night, then Dallas can obviously win that game. If it was a 7-game series, it'd be easy. It'd be Memphis in 5 or whatever it would be. But it's a one-off. Memphis is much better, but in this format, you just don't know what's going to happen.
The Grizzlies are, at least on paper, an actual full basketball team. As I mentioned, with Dallas, it's just a whole bunch of front court players. And then, hey, Klay Thompson, let's see if you can find the fountain of youth. The Grizzlies look like they hadn't beaten a team in the Western Conference playoffs, a team that has already made it to the Western Conference playoffs since January 30th. However, as recently as, late February, they were the 2 seed. As recently as when they fired Taylor Jenkins, they were the 4 seed. At best now, they'll be the 8 seed. But they have guards, Hakeem. Like, they have, I don't know what Dallas is going to do if Ja plays. Even if Ja hadn't played, they still have Scottie Pippen Jr. and Desmond Bane and players that can get after you in the backcourt. Dallas has none of that. So at least on paper, it should be the Grizzlies moving forward. But as Bill mentioned, it's a one-game situation. Anything could happen. And at least in these first 4 games, I only got one of them right. So who knows what's going to happen on Friday.
Grizzlies are 6.5-point favorites over the Mavs on Friday night. So Sacramento now eliminated in February. You guys noted Kings GM Monty McNair traded De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs as part of a 3-team deal. Sacramento got Zach LaVine, 3 first-round picks as a part of the deal. John, you mentioned Doug Christie, currently the interim coach. So Sacramento with some decisions to be made here, Bill. What's next for the Kings as they go into the offseason?
Well, keep an eye on Monty McNair, who you just mentioned, an executive that I know well, who's very connected, told me after the latest round of crazy firings, when Michael Malone and Calvin Booth went away, and John and I discussed this on the podcast, he said David Griffin could be on the chopping block and Monty McNair could be on the chopping block. Well, Griff is gone in New Orleans. He's been fired. So it's not a set thing, but there's certainly a lot of talk around the NBA that there may just be a total reset in Sacramento, which, by the way, it makes sense. They're not doing well in a vacuum. That's something that might sort of be the right move. You pull that lever. But Sacramento pulls this same lever, it feels like, every couple years. Mike Brown was the longest tenured coach in a long time. He did a hell of a job, and they got rid of him too. So you're sort of between a rock and a hard place here, because the reality is it is not a great ownership situation. The organization is not well run. That has been true for 2 decades. And unless you're going to bring in a remarkable front office person, and this is critical, let them actually have the power and the freedom to do the job, we're going to be having the same conversation in a year or 2.
Yeah, that front office has been dysfunctional for a long time now under Vivek, right? I mean, like, this is a situation where they'll cycle through coaches, they'll cycle through front office decision makers, but you end up just being the Sacramento Kings. You're a team that isn't very good. You're not a playoff team proper. You're a team that's fighting for the play-in, and then once you get there, you're probably an early out, and they were again tonight. And I don't know, even if you bring in a new general manager, this is a tough situation. You had a franchise player in the face of your franchise, and he looked at it from the inside and went, no, thank you. All of us externally were led to believe, oh, this is a Mike Brown problem. This is a De'Aaron Fox problem. No, it isn't. This is a Sacramento Kings problem. And whoever inherits this, if they decide to keep the current leadership in place or they bring in somebody else from the outside, you're looking at DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine and Domantas Sabonis, who are nice players individually, although DeMar's getting a little bit older. They're nice players individually, but they don't play a lick of defense. They don't fit together. And I don't know how you cure that overnight or during this offseason.
A lot of changes will be made in Sacramento. Much more with Bill and John coming up here on CBS Sports.